Hey guys, so I know those last few videos have been a little here and there. I wanted to do 12 days of Christmas, but I just found that it was very overwhelming to do all the things that I need to do before Christmas and edit every day. So kudos to those of you who can do that, but that was definitely not for me. So we're 2 days away from Christmas Eve, and I have some traditions that I do religiously every year, and that I've done since my children were small. And yeah, so I am running out of time, and we've got to get some going today. So tonight I think we are going to do our gingerbread houses. We normally do these like earlier in December, but we just had a lot going on and didn't do anything. So I have got a solution to make it a little bit easier on myself this year. I'll share that in a minute. And then I think I'm going to make, I've got lots of Christmas candy that I still would like to make. And it's not that it has to be done before Christmas. Some of it I was going to give to gifts. I just like to have it, and it's things that I like to make every year, and they're Christmassy to me, so I like to do that. I don't want to make them, the ones that I'm given as gifts, I don't necessarily want to make ahead of time. But we also do sugar cookies, which I'm not going to do today, but we do those on Christmas Eve. And yeah, so it's just a lot. And when I say, like, we're very like loose in how we do things. I'm not particular. I have been in the past, but I've learned to let go of some things and to cut some corners. So without further ado, alright, so I'm not going to be making all of the recipes today. We're going to make one and then do some hot dogs for dinner, which is super simple, and do our gingerbread houses and watch a movie. But I am going to do the rest tomorrow. But today we are doing Granny Agnes's fudge, and here's Granny Agnes, and this is a cookbook we did, she did whenever I just first got married, and she was Josh's grandmother, his mother's mother, and she was a very funny and sweet lady, and this whole book is recipes that were handwritten by her. So you can see how all of these recipes are just handwritten, and I just love that about this book. But today we are going to be reading this story of Where Do You Buy Scratch? And it is a very funny story. I'm going to read it to you guys while I show you a couple pictures from our holiday so far. Okay, so I love cookbook stories, and this is probably what made me start reading all those little funny little bits in other cookbooks. But this is one of my favorite stories, and it's the funniest thing ever. So it's called Where Do You Buy Scratch? And this is a true story about Agnes, Josh's grandmother. Where do you buy scratch? My mother never let me help much in the kitchen, and as a result, my cooking ability was practically non-existent whenever I got married. But I did remember Mother mentioning to her friends that she'd make cakes, pies, and other things from scratch. So, my first priority after the honeymoon was to locate some scratch. With Mother's delicious cakes in mind, my first trip to the supermarket was to buy some scratch. I found the aisle that read baking items, and I spent a good 15 minutes looking at everything from vegetable oil, sugar, flour, and chocolate without seeing a sign of scratch. I was sure it wouldn't be with the pickles or the meat. I asked the clerk if they carried scratch, and he looked at me funny and finally said, "You'll have to go to the store on the corner." When I got there, it turned out to be a feed store. I thought it was rather strange, but I decided cakes were feed. So, "Do you have scratch?" I asked the clerk. He asked me how much I wanted. I suggested a pound or two. His reply was, "Well, how many chickens do you have? It only comes in 20-pound bags." I really didn't understand why he mentioned chickens, but I had heard Mother say she made chicken casserole from scratch. So I bought 20 pounds and hurried home. My next problem was to find a recipe calling for scratch. I went through every single page of my lovely Better Homes and Gardens cookbook given as a wedding present, looking for a recipe calling for scratch. There I was with 20 pounds of scratch and no recipe. When I opened the scratch, I had doubts that a beautiful fluffy cake would ever result from such a hard-looking ingredient. I hoped with the addition of liquids and heat, the result would be successful. I had no need to mention my problem to my husband, as he suggested very early in our marriage he liked to cook and would gladly take over any time. One day, he made a pie, and when I told him how good it was, he said he made it from scratch. That assured me it could be done. Being a new bride is scary, and when I found out he made pies and cakes and even lemon pudding from scratch, well, if he made all those things from scratch, I was sure he had brought a 20-pound bag also. But I couldn't find where he stored it, and I checked my supply and it was still full. At this point, I was ready to give up because all the people knew about scratch except me. I decided to try a different approach. One day, when my husband was not doing anything, I said, "Honey, I wish you'd bake a cake." And he got out the flour and sugar and eggs and milk and shortening, but not a sign of scratch. I watched him blend it together and pour it in a pan and slide it into the oven to bake. An hour later, as we were eating the cake, I looked at him and smiled and said, "Honey, why don't we raise a few chickens?" Alright, so that's one of my favorite stories. I hope you enjoyed that. But now we are going to make Agnes's fudge candy. And it's super simple, but let's do it and then get our gingerbread houses going. Alright, so in case you didn't see it in that, this recipe only calls for 3 ingredients, and that's sweetened condensed milk, a bag of chocolate chips, semi-sweet, and a cup of peanut butter. That's it. So I've just got some water. I'm going to bring up to a low boil and just slowly melt my chocolates. I don't want it to seize up on me. You just got to be really careful to not let any of the water or anything get into your chocolate chips. So I'm just going to be very slowly stirring these and letting them slowly come up to temperature and melt. Alright, so I took it off the burner because it was actually starting to get a little too hot, even though I turned the burner down, but it's just slowly melting. You just want to make sure you don't want this to come to a boil, because your butter's going to boil and then it's going to splatter and get into your chocolate and cause it to seize, and you do not want that. So just, it takes a little bit of time, but you just gotta keep stirring, just keep stirring. And then as soon as this is melted, this is literally the hardest part of this fudge candy recipe. So I'm just getting it nice and smooth, and it's almost there right now. Alright guys, I hope you can see this. So I've got my pan just lined loosely with parchment paper. I don't mind all the little cracks that I'm going to get. If you want like a perfect edge around your fudge, I mean, you could use a silicone mat or just pour it on this and then hope that it comes loose. Spray it or something. But I'm just going to use parchment paper, and all we're going to do is we're going to take our chocolate and make sure everything in there is just as smooth as can be. Looks really, really good. Now we're going to mix with we're going to take our sweetened condensed milk. Is this in frame? Can you see this?
Yeah, it's in frame.
Okay. So we're going to take our sweetened condensed milk. I like to kind of start stirring it together. You don't have to. And then we're going to take our peanut butter
and pop in.
And this takes a little bit of mixing. I wouldn't necessarily bring out my mixer. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you were gonna like double this, but I think it doesn't take long, and I don't need to dirty up more dishes than this tonight. So
Plus we still gotta cook supper.
It's just hot dogs.
What are
I'm gonna make some slaw.
hot dogs and slaw? Are we cooking them outside
I'm not.
on the griddle?
Alright,
flat
so
top?
you can see how it's starting to kind of get a little bit thick, and that's kind of what you want. Just make sure that you don't have any of those really, see, I got some peanut butter swirls here. I just try to get it all mixed in. I could use a bigger mixer, but it's good. Alright, I think that's good. Now I'm going to take my pan here. I've got some more peanut butter swirls in there, but that's okay. I'm going to mix it a little bit more on this.
Make it. So this is gonna turn into
Like that fudge candy. So funny fact, I made this, I had this in my house, like I kept it. So however often I needed to make it when I was pregnant with Cora. So 4 Christmases ago, I was eating a lot of this. Alright, so you're just going to work it all the way to your edges. This pan is about an inch thick, an inch deep, which is about what you want. If you need more space in your pan, or if you have too much space in your pan, you can just draw like how it stopped here. You can just kind of form it to that. I think I'll have enough to go to the end of this pan though. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is...
Hey, this is going to taste so good when it's done.
So, you can see that it's not like super messy or anything. It's just... It's kind of like a really soft Play-Doh.
Woo! Oh, God.
Granny Agnes's fudge candy.
Oh, heck yes. Awesome.
I know. I don't think I've made this since I was pregnant with Cora. And I ate it like every day.
Every day.
Every day.
I got all the wood cut in that one pot set with wild cherry.
Okay.
Cool. Right?
How long does this gotta sit to finish?
Not very long. Alright, so I stopped it just a couple inches away so that it is a little bit thicker. I want it to be about an inch thick. So now all this needs to do is cool. I'm going to put it in the fridge, and it don't take long, and then we'll pull it out and we'll cut it into cubes, and it can stay on the counter if you want till then. It does a little bit better stored in the fridge, but yeah. So we'll get this chilled and then cut it up. No, you don't eat it. It just started sleeting. It's been unseasonably warm this year, but
And we was out there trying to fix it up, and then all of a sudden it started doing this.
little speckles of winter. Too bad it's not snow.
That's what I thought it was at first. Alright, come on.
Close, but not quite. Alright, so I've took my fudge out. Now, you know, this is like Cheater's fudge or something like that, but it's super smooth and creamy, and I will prefer this better than fudge. But it's been in the fridge for about an hour and a half, maybe. So it's very good and solid. It peels away, but it is still, it's not like rock hard, okay? And I've just got a little Christmas tin, and I've cut some pieces of parchment paper into circles so I can layer it in that pan. So I'm going to be putting it in this pan right here. lay that one down in the bottom.
And then you can layer that one on the top. Yeah.
So to cut it, I kind of cut it in smaller, I don't know, 1 by 1 inch pieces, something like that.
And then you're gonna cut it downwards into like little squares. I want squares. Yeah. I can't wait for tiger butter. Tiger butter we haven't had since Laura's birthday. Dang.
Alright, so there it is. It's not going to quite fit in my little container here, but I'm sure we'll eat a little bit of it. But it's delicious, and if you try it, let me know what you think, if it's as good as I make it out to be. Alright, so we finished our gingerbread house, and I think we're going to call it good for this video. We're going to finish watching the star, and the kids would like to wish you
A Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas. We hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas. If we don't see you before then, I know we'll have some more videos out of our Christmas as it happens. But we do want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas, and thank you guys for watching us all these videos and staying in touch with us, and we appreciate y'all. God bless.